How's it going? I hope you're doing well. Thanks for watching this. My name's Spencer Dobson. This week on Learning Curve, I'm doing the last episode in a series about building that Billy Bow guitar that you see behind me. That guitar inspired this series because I learned so much from building it. I had never built a guitar before, and I bought just a random body. And so I didn't really have instructions. I just had to kind of figure a lot of stuff out for myself. And I learned so much building that guitar. And some of the stuff I really learned the hard way. This week, I'm gonna talk about the hard parts on Learning Curve. So the process of building this guitar was a process of constantly going, look, if I screw this up, I'm not gonna have a guitar. And that was not always true, but it felt like it was always true. I think if I had bought a kit, the whole thing would have been just a little bit easier. That's not what happened. Some of this stuff worked exactly the way it was supposed to work, but I feel like the person that built this guitar body knew they'd screwed stuff up on it, and that's why they got rid of it. And that's how I got it. Now, that's speculation, but I will say I had to alter the body a lot. So this is the schematic. You see you got your pickup selector switch that picks the pickups. You've got a master volume that controls the volume for everything. You got the tone that controls the tone, and then each pickup has its own volume. So this is how the schematic fits into the guitar. As I'm sure you realize, wires connect all these different elements. Those wires run through tunnels that are drilled into the guitar. The problem with this guitar is the tunnels that the wires are supposed to run to were too small to fit the wires that I needed to fit through them. Now, when I started this, I didn't know about this heat shrink rubber that allows you to bundle your wires together. And when they're bundled like that, the rubber and the rigidity of multiple wires makes it a little stiffer, makes it a little easier to push through the hole. I will let you write your own sex joke. Good job. I ended up using just electrical tape to bundle everything together, and then I would put a needle nose plier into the mouth and kind of pull things through. It was not ideal, and I really risked screwing up the wires. So bundling did make it better, but it wasn't enough. What I needed to do was enlarge the holes that the wires went through, or I was just never going to be able to connect everything because I couldn't get everything to get to where it needed to be. Now we get to one of the takeaways of this whole deal. And that is, if you're gonna mod guitars, I don't think you can be precious about it. I don't think, in my experience, in my humble opinion, I don't think you can look at a guitar body as done and unchangeable. I think you have to look at it as fluid. So if a hole's too small, you just have to make the hole bigger. That's the deal, right? But because of that, it means you have to own every choice you make, and you have to think it through, and you have to get an idea of what you're doing. Because it's really hard to put wood back on. You know, there is wood filler, there is wood glue, but it's never going to be the way it was before you started, so you have to own your choices. Know that. Literally, all of the routing on this guitar needed work. First of all, there's a little tunnel that runs from the neck pickup to the bridge pickup, and most of the wires in the guitar run through that hole, and it was way too small. Now there's a hole in the bottom of the neck pocket, and that's where the drill goes in to make that hole. So what I did was I found the drill bit that fit that tightly, and then I went up a couple of sizes. I went to the hardware store, I just found a long drill bit, and went in, and boom, problem solved. Well, problem mostly solved. I still had to file it a little bit. It was still a little bit tight. Now, however, wires fit in there relatively easily. it's still a little bit snug, but it functions. That's what counts. Now for the rest of the holes, it wasn't so easy. The hole from the switch was too small. The hole from the master volume was too small. The hole for the plug was too small. The hole that runs to the control cavity was too small. I had to go in with a file because the drill, I couldn't find a good angle. I don't know what kind of drill the guy used to do that, but I have a standard issue Black & Decker, and I just could not get it to fit comfortably in the hole. So again, write your own sex jokes. I ended up using a file to widen most of these holes, so it took a little longer. It was frustrating. There was a lot of swearing involved, but it worked. The wires now fit. Now I can connect everything. So, well, maybe there's a better way. I still got to where I needed to go. So the pickups were routed for a size that doesn't exist, as far as I can tell. I looked at multiple mini humbuckers and multiple P90s, and they do not fit in that hole. Neither do humbuckers, and I do not remember the original dimensions of the hole, but it's a rectangle that nothing works with. So I decided to go, because I'm basically making a Gretsch, I went with Filtrons because that's what Gretsch does. And I went with Guitar Fetish Filtrons because they're affordable and because they're humbucker size. So if I decide to go, and I have put humbuckers in that guitar before, if I want to swap them out for regular humbuckers, now I have a pocket that's the right size for that. Here's the thing, there's a lot of ways to make a hole bigger in a piece of wood. Originally I wanted to use a router, but I found it very unwieldy and a little bit dangerous, and I don't have a workbench and one of those router brace things that supports everything, so that turned out to be a disaster. I didn't think a Dremel would be like enough. You know, I just didn't think it was a strong enough tool to handle the job. So I was thinking, I'm like, before electricity, people built some pretty amazing stuff with their hands. So why can't I just use a chisel, right? Like, I'm not building a throne or a church or a lute. I'm just putting a hole in a piece of wood that's a little bit bigger. What could possibly go wrong? I'll tell you, a lot. A lot can go wrong. Did you know there are two different kinds of chisels? There are chisels for metal and there are chisels for wood, and they're very different. And if you have not spent a lot of time in the world of chisels, you might not know to look for that difference. And that's what I did. I bought I bought metal chisels to work on wood. So needless to say, this took a lot longer than it had to. It was brutal. It took days. There was a lot of swearing. There was a lot of hammering. There was a lot of frustration. But once again, the holes are bigger. I mean, now I know about chisels. Now I know about Dremels. Now I know about tools. It would have been great, you know, to know some of that stuff sooner, but I didn't. So, bottom line, the pickups fit. I also had to install the bridge. I found a couple of videos on the topic. One guy says, once you find the place that the bridge is going to sit, by a center punch that fits snugly in the little brackety part, so it's right in the middle, so it's centered perfectly. Don't skimp on that step, he said, because it'll screw up. If it's off even a little bit, it'll screw up your bridge. And that guy's right. Oh man, is that guy right. I eyeballed it and I'm off just a millimeter, but boy, it is like, I'm never taking that bridge off without a lot of stuff going wrong. There was a lot of swearing and pounding involved in putting that bridge on that guitar, but it is on. And the process for setting the intonation is relatively simple. Now, this guitar originally had a trapeze bridge, and if you're going to be putting a lot of bridges on, it might be worth it to buy one because they go right over the button where you put your strap button, right? The trapeze bridge goes over that. You can put the strings through it, and then you take washers, put tape. I put not electrical tape. I put painting tape over them to protect the body of the guitar. And then you just set up the bridge. You keep moving it until you find the intonation you need. You get the low E and the 12-string E to be right, in tune. And then that's where you make your little marks on each side, and that's where you take your little chisel. And the thing with using the washers is they have a hole in the middle of it so you can mark your spot. Right? And I will put the video on how to do this in the links. But it was amazing. It works perfectly. The intonation on this guitar is fantastic. I'm really happy with it. But find a center punch. Find a series of center punches so you'll have the one that fits right on your guitar, because making that hole properly is the difference between I get to adjust my action as I want to, and I guess we're going to leave this the way it is. As I've mentioned multiple times, this show isn't called I Did Everything Perfectly. It's called Learning Curve. I think the neck was the scariest part of this whole process because it really matters. And I know I can't build a neck, and if you screw up the neck, it's going to affect the way it plays. This body had a 54 centimeter neck pocket, which is really on the small side. I spent hours, possibly days, going over the internet looking for guitars that would fit in the pocket on this guitar, and I only found one that I could afford. It was like $26, $29 on eBay. It's some off-brand that I've never heard of, but it showed up, and when it got here, it was still a little tiny bit too big for the pocket, so I had to do the thing I was dreading, which was widen the pocket. And I just used a wood file and file a little, put the neck in, file a little, put the neck in, file a little, until finally it fit in nice and snug. But then I still had room at the back. It's like there's a weird warping at the back of the neck pocket. Again, I don't know what was going on when this guy made this guitar, but there's some interesting stuff happening. So I put a shim in. I went to StewMac. I found the biggest shim I could find. I put it in the pocket, and there's still a little space in there, but you know what? It plays great, it sounds great, and I haven't had issues. With it. So I don't know what to tell you. Now, I had to replace the first fret because it was too low. So it was creating a lot of buzzing and a lot of problems. And when the guy replaced it, I think he got the nut a little too low. So I might, because I still get a little buzz of a different caliber. So I might go back and replace that nut in the future now that I have a little more experience with it. But my cheap neck ended up costing like 5 times more than the initial price. Because I had to take it to somebody to get it fixed. So I think if you're going to do this, first of all, try to find a body with a standard issue neck pocket, and then spend a little money on the neck, for sure. If you go cheap on everything else, I think spending money on the neck is probably going to make you the happiest. But that's what I'm doing next time. Okay guys, that was my adventure in guitar building. I hope everything's going okay for you. If you started building guitars because you're social distancing and you're stuck at home, awesome, you're gonna have a really good time. Try not to get too frustrated. Understand that sometimes you gotta walk away from it, and then when you come back, the ideas will come. If you like this show, please subscribe, please share it with your friends. Please follow me on Instagram. Yeah, if you have comments, please be gentle. My name is Spencer Dobson. This has been Learning Curve. We'll see you next time.